Is everybody there?
Yeah.
Okay. Religion and politics, fundamentalism, secularism, individuals in politics, religion and politics today. Sir, that cough scared me. I thought there was someone in my house. Well, okay, it's almost Halloween. Well, not quite, but what's happening with Halloween this year? Are we allowed to do Halloween, like trick or treating and stuff? I don't even know.
I don't think they've detailed anything yet.
They're probably gonna make an announcement about it.
Well, Halloween, I don't mean at school. I just mean in general.
Yeah, they're probably gonna make like an announcement saying, "Oh, it's canceled this year" or something.
Sir, I was reading some people, they made like something that gives candy to people itself, and they put like sanitizers and stuff. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so religious fundamentalism. In Christianity, fundamentals feel that the state must be subservient to God, most evident in Northern Ireland. In America, there's a huge push towards this as well. We've seen it very much in the forefront, especially in the last couple of years. Now, when we separate church and state, and we'll get to that more in detail later. It's a fine line. Now, there are many countries that are very much so officially religious. Obviously, you guys know all about the Vatican, which is actually a country. But there are Orthodox, Lutheran, Anglican, Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish countries, and officially, and then of course there are unofficial countries with a lot of populations that are still secular by that definition. So secularism, of course, is the official policy that divides religion from the government. Anti-establishmentarianism. I love that word. There are still people in secular countries that want to continue with the church to have a say. Now, in America, the First Amendment to the Constitution. So, I don't know if any of you took the American history in grade 11, but basically you have the Constitution and then you have a series of amendments that occurred afterwards. But the first one, basically, it explicitly bans the federal government from setting up a state church, which means we cannot have in the United States of America, the Church of America. And that's, very important to many people. It was obviously very important to the people that began the political atmosphere in the United States. Now, again, there are many people who don't believe that this should have ever been an amendment, even today in 2020. And we see it being portrayed in the media often, especially with the way that certain people talk about certain leaders as being saviors or et cetera, et cetera. Of course, religious leaders and political leaders have very powerful voices. There's a lot of famous people who were, on the line between their religious players that worked in the world of politics, like the list here. Most people know Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu. Less people know Dietrich Bonhoeffer, but these people were very, very, important, played very important roles in keeping religion out of the politics, or at least, fundamentalism, etc. even today, there are many countries. I mean, Ireland, especially, India, Pakistan, Israel, Palestine. That's a huge one. China, of course, Iran, United States, where religion plays a huge role. In the United States, even though the First Amendment has, expressly forbids an American church, if you will. Many religions, religious, especially in the Protestant world, convince their flock to vote a certain way. They have influence. Yeah.
I was wondering though, when it comes to the separation of church and the state, from my understanding, it was, religion and the law as well, like not regarding not political beliefs, but religious beliefs when it came to creating legislation, even though that's not the case.
Well, no, it is. And it's, let's take Canada, for example, with euthanasia and abortion. Euthanasia, more recent in the news and in our history, assisted, when for patients who are terminally ill, having the right to end their lives before the natural progression of their death, right? The religious, those that follow religion, especially in the Catholic Church, very much oppose this. But, of course, in Canada, the law is now that if you are terminally ill, you have the right. So the influence is still there. Now, the laws were created, especially in, historically Christian countries, very much based on the teachings of the Bible, right? The 10 Commandments and so forth and so on. But, the idea of the golden rule, every single religion, even secular humanism, if you want to put it in the same category for lack of better idea, teaches one rule. What is that rule? What is the golden rule?
Do unto others what you want done unto yourself, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the wording is always different,
Yeah.
but it's the same, right?
But in regards to Canada, because Canada within its charter has, paid tribute to its Judeo-Christian heritage and, acknowledges that its charter has extremely fundamental portions within the Catholic Church, but that isn't the case when it comes to America. So like in America, right, church and that's one of their main amendments is church and state should be separated. So then how within politics is it allowed for, say, Trump, especially to, think about the rule of law, like how Trump can hold up a Bible in front of anyone and, actively display his participation when he has that amount of power. Like, how is that allowed, especially when it isn't really depicted in the Canadian Charter, but it is in the United States. So it's very evident that you're not supposed to do that. But he hasn't ever been reprimanded for it.
Well, it's about interpretation. So the First Amendment talks about there's no, state religion allowed to exist. But that doesn't mean that they don't have laws like they have in Quebec or France, where individuals are not allowed to portray their religion. And that's how, people like Trump or a lot of the far-right Republicans, talk about, their religions in terms of their politics, right? So there's a difference between the person and the official political, establishment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but even it's interesting to see, because even when it comes to the abortion laws, those are very fundamentally based in, Christian beliefs.
Sure.
So have those legislations pass, knowing wouldn't that just evidently be an example of mixing church and state?
Not necessarily. Because again, it's not about the religious influence. It's literally about a state religion.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Right? So it's really insignificant when it comes to anything other than the fact that they're not allowed to create the Christian American America, whatever you want to call it. It would be like the Church of England, the Church of America. That being said, there are many, many people, followers in the United States, who consider themselves far-right Christians, and they vote for the people they vote for. The representatives follow their leads, and it's a big issue in the news, especially abortion. You want to keep going to that in the United States because, as a Canadian, we see it as something like, well, we don't understand because our system is totally different. In Canada, it's not only legal but paid for by the government, the abortion. Whereas in the United States, first of all, they don't have universal health care. Some public, establishments fund it. Planned Parenthood, it's partially funded by the government, less so during the times of the Republican administrations. And, but for the most part, it's when available at a cost. And, the Americans' history is different than the Canadian history. American history is rooted in puritanical Christianity. The Mayflower. It's of who they are. Not to justify anything. I'm just trying to explain in a nutshell, a very, very loose nutshell, why Americans have so many more vocal far-right Christians than Canadians do. Again, Americans don't have the tossed salad, multicultural, we're all from different parts of the world. We all have different worldviews, but we all live together type of mentality. In America, they have once you're in America, you are American mentality. Now, what does it mean to be American? That's up for debate. The far-right religious fundamentalists believe that to be American, you are a far-right religious fundamentalist. And there are pockets of the United States that have many, many people who follow that doctrine. And of course, those states have laws that reflect that. Then there's other more liberal parts of the Americas, which have much more liberal type of policies. But again, remember, you can't look at America as one country. America is very much distinctly different in many ways, in the South and the North, and then, of course, in the individual states, right? And I mentioned this before with their two-party system. There are, lifetime members of either political party. And over the years, the history and the policies have changed very much drastically in those parties, almost flip-flopped. The Abraham Lincoln, known as the great abolitionist, was a Republican, right? But today we see Republicans as being... What?
Sir, what about the party switch in the 60s? The platform switch, in the 60s.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. So over history, 200 years, the platforms and the political ideologies of the parties have totally changed. It's not the same party today as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And, we talk about knowing your history. A lot of people don't know their history, especially those people that, I'm going to argue, wave the Nazi flag in the United States as hardcore Trump-loving Republicans, because America's greatest enemy at one point was the Nazi Party. And so it makes no sense that there are people who want these policies in the United States, right? there's no right or wrong ever, because it's always a personal belief system. But it's important that there are lessons to be learned in history, and when you close a blind eye, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. All I can say, and I don't give my opinion very often, is I'm glad I live in Canada and not the United States. How controversial that statement can be, it is what it is. Separation of church and state. So continue on these, answers that you're talking about. Structurally, the government is separated from the church and state. There is no influence in terms of policy from the church. The influence comes from the people. Okay, so I'm still trying to answer your question there. Again, the government, even the church, is not real. They're both industries just stories that have been created by people and given life. So when we talk about, laws, those laws are proposed by individuals, then become part of groups, and then become part of, institutions, and then make it, part of the government level. So in the States, all those rules and laws, banning abortion or making it harder for people to get an abortion or what have you, that are seemingly Christian, hardcore, right-wing Christian value systems, that's not a part of the government that's doing that. Those are the individuals in the government who have been elected by the people who are doing that. In Canada, so in other words, a religious person or a church cannot go into the government and create a law. That law still has to go through the proper, avenues. And, in Canada, our influences are very different than the United States. I don't know if that answers your question at all, Sarah, or anyone else, right? So, there's still a lot of people who want prayer to be a part of the legislative sessions. And it still exists. So church is exempt from tax. Churches are exempt from taxation, right? If we have a true separation of church and state, why are churches exempt from taxation? Religious symbols are not really allowed as much, definitely not allowed in public schools, but that's recent. And that's not even so much a new law. That's just people are implementing the policies themselves deliberately. In Quebec, obviously, they have a much more strict, policy on that. In the United States, they are very open to religion, because a lot of people, are much more far right fundamental than your everyday Christian. And again, you ever heard of the term vocal minority? Right? A vocal minority is a group of people or a subject that becomes something very much outspoken. It's what you see on the news all the time, the people you see on the news. And then it creates this sense that they're the ones that are the majority because that's all you see. The vocal minority, the vocal, the silent majority. But in reality, and this is studied by anthropologists and sociologists, most people keep their mouths shut. Right? Most people, regardless of what their worldview is or their political affiliation, don't talk about it. So it's very impossible to know what people are thinking. 4 years ago, most people thought Trump wouldn't have a chance, at all to win. Because, they even did a lot of polls, and all the polls said he has no chance. But again, one of the many reasons why we didn't know is because of the silent majority. Most people choose not to talk about their belief system. It's an age-old saying, don't talk about religion and politics at dinner. And there's a reason that saying exists, right? I guess we can take a look at these questions. Why in Hinduism every political decision is also a religious decision? Well, India historically, and again, when I talked about Hinduism, and those of you that remember studying Hinduism understand it as more of a culture than a religion, and turned into a religion as the history progressed, right? I don't know. We don't really need to look at these questions right now. I want to get through everything. Or I guess you could take a look at... Okay, I got an idea. Answer these questions yourself, and then we can talk about them. Because some of them require a little bit of research, if you will. So let me post those. Oops.
Is that our homework for tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. We have the rest of the class and to take care of it. If you haven't finished it tomorrow, again, remember, I don't like religion. I don't like talking about homework or homework at all. So if we don't finish it today, I'll give class time tomorrow. Excusez-moi. Okay, so it's not marked anything, it's just discussion. So that was on page, oh crap. What page of that?
It was near the end.
I don't remember which slide was that even? Power and influence? Canadian. Was it this one? Yeah, it was this one. No. There we go. So page 37, 38 of this slide. I'm going to just write it down. All right, go at it.
Sure, do you-
Anyone else have anything to say? Then that's what we'll do for the rest of the class.
So can we leave, like, the call?
Yeah, sure, I guess. I know I'm going to get in trouble for always letting you guys go early, but,
Well, we're still working.
if you need me, you know how to contact me. We're all still here, right?
I
Just
would never tell you for letting us go early, sir.
I'm not letting you go early. I'm giving you work.
I know, but you
It's
said
so much
you're
easier.
gonna get in trouble.
Because my other teacher, he has us stay on the call, but like you hear everything.
Yeah, no, I think well, there's asynchronous and synchronous work. It's asynchronous work now. Always.
Exactly.
Okay, so unless you need me, you know how to contact me, and